Do 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 do. Antenna be wide open. Antenna be wide open. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Welcome to Papa's neighborhood. Spring risings. Waketh the fucketh up. If. Wake it up, wake it up, wake it up. Get yourself awake, wake yourself up, get the fuck up. If you ain't up by now, you're already behind. So what are you doing with your day? What are you doing with your day? What you doing with your life? What you doing right now? What are you doing? What thou with doing this day, in your day, as you wake up for your day, enjoying the day, embracing the day, the impact of the day, all that good shit. What was I doing? I'm trying to learn how to do a bunch of buttons at once. All right, let's hit that. Let's drop it in. Let's hit some invites. Let's get people in there. Let's get people active. Let's get people engaged. Let's go to work. Let's do some things. I wanted to get in today while I was getting ready for my day, while I was doing my normal routine. Got up, did my meditation, knocked my meditation out, did some stretches, did some in-house workout. It was a little too chilly for me to go out, lined up the bed, got myself looking good. And I was sitting there thinking, I was sitting back thinking about the process. I was thinking about routine, self-discipline, when you're putting in the work and things of that nature, setting your intentions, setting affirmations, scrying once you draw your sigils out, or you draw out your, whatever you're drawing, or how you draw up your stuff and you put your stuff on your wall, however you put your stuff into the day. And I was thinking about consistency. And I remember at a point in time for myself, I didn't really have consistency. I had a sense of comfort. I would do things in a sense of comfort, but I didn't have a real sense of consistency. I was thinking about these aspects and a lot of the things that we come into with ourselves, building ourselves out. And it made me really think about when you set your intentions and what you're setting them for, speaking your affirmations, and are you doing it from that space of belief, like you believe like this should be owed to you or whatever, based in the aspects of trauma, you're unresolved. Like a lot of times, before we get into that, I'm going too fast, let me slow it down, bring it back. I was watching the T-Pain podcast, Nappy Boy Radio podcast, and it was the Shroom episode. They had a comedian by the name of Byron. I already forgot his last name. It'll come up to me. But he was talking about the aspects of, if I can't afford it 5 times, if I can't buy it 5 times, then I'm not going to purchase it. And then T-Pain had said his rebuttal to it was, if I can't use it to make me money, then I'm not going to purchase it. Both factors was true. And then it sparked my thought process into today's topic, in the aspects of understanding the difference between convincing yourself that you need something, convincing yourself that you want something, convincing that that this is something that you deserve, versus constructing. And I thought about what convincing does. You know, when you convince yourself, you know, when you sat in the mirror and you're trying to convince yourself of some shit, it usually leaves you in a state of constriction. Usually when we think about the aspects of convincing ourselves, it puts us in a state of limiting. because we're trying to attach ourselves to a certain outcome. We're trying to attach ourselves to a certain outcome versus the actual constructing of said space. Constructing of said space. So we think about convincing ourselves that we need something, we want something, and it usually is based on constricting ourselves. We're not thinking about what we have to become. We're not thinking about what we need to shed. We're not thinking about what we need to let go of. We're simply thinking of what do I need? What do I need to move around in order to get this? Versus the actual constructing, which is the standard, setting that new standard, setting a new tone, setting the new routines, and not really knowing how to like formulate our space. It made me think about, I thought about it like this. I'm going to give an example, then we'll build on it. I remember anytime prior to 2020, I was working traditional 9 to 5. I was getting up every day, going to the restaurant, burning myself out, and coming back to the house, trying to catch my day. In that space, I didn't have any type of discipline. My only discipline, what was considered my discipline or my routine or my comfort zone was waking up to go to work. So the only time that I was waking up in the AM, was to go to work. I had to have something there to say, okay, cool, you got to go to work. You're scheduled to go to work. You got to pay a bill. So naturally, I got to go to work. Even if I didn't feel like going to work, I got to pay this bill. I got to go pay the rent. I got to go pay the electric bill. I got to go pay these bills. So that's what was inside of that space. As long as I was inside of that space of comfort, as long as I had the job, that means I could pay bills. That means I can go play money. That means I can go do whatever I wanted to do. So that was the limit of the access to going into other spaces. That was the limit to my access. Here's the key. As opposed to now, where I'm at now, I can wake up 4:30, meditate, work, go to the gym, work out, actually sit with myself and plan my day out, put my day together accordingly, and I can set the tone and I can move my days. But there's a key to it. Similar to the aspect, think about how many times you said you hated your job, the relationship, whatever it was. The first key to breaking out of that zone and breaking out of trying to convince myself that this is what I deserve, I guess this is what I'm going to settle for, is understanding what it is. See, the reason that I sat down, I had my self-reflection last night, did my self-inventory, and I counted out how many jobs I held. I've had 12 jobs from out of high school to now. I've had 12 jobs. I looked at the number of relationships that I had. I've had 12 relationships. I sat there and laughed at myself when I sat there and realized I had as many jobs as relationships. No such thing as coincidence. I had 12 jobs and 12 relationships. So that means technically I had a job with every relationship. So it made me go deeper into my analysis. I was like, of this convincing myself. I had a job for every relationship. That means in every job that I held, I had a relationship that defined the job. I had friendships, networks. I had things in that space to define that space in that point. But the key to breaking out of the comfort zone, is understanding those reasons. Whenever I'm working with clients and we having these conversations, is really taking that audit of yourself. Or you're going to keep repeating the same thing. You'll keep repeating the same type of relationships, and everything happens energetically. So then I looked at what was the difference between the beginning relationships up until now. What's the difference between my jobs then and my job, what I do now? It was the aspects of what I was building inside of the space. This is where the construction comes in. This is when we step into the construction. This is when we step into the aspects of that discipline. It wasn't until about 2000, I'll say 2018, 2017, 18, when I actually really started meditating. When I actually started getting up and actually meditating for the day. That means I had to wake up. If I had to be at work at 7, that means I had to be up at 4. So I had to give myself that actual reason of being up at 4. But to be up at 4 wasn't just simply to say, I want to meditate. That I did that in the beginning. I need to meditate. I need to sit with myself at 4 o'clock in the a.m. If I tell myself I need to wake up at 4 o'clock early before I go to work, what's the thing I'm going to think about while I'm waking up at 4 o'clock? I got to be at work. I'm thinking about everything that's related to me going to work. Did I put my clothes in the dryer? Did I put my clothes in the washer? Did I put my shit in the dryer? Did I turn the dryer on? Did I forget to turn the dryer on last night? Damn, am I going to cut my hair? Am I going to line up my beard? All of these things. Ultimately, when you're trying to convince yourself of doing something, you're going to think in a deconstructive manner until you reach to a point of comfort. Ultimately, when you're trying to convince yourself to do something, 9 times out of 10, that process starts going. This is where the anxiety comes up. This is when your anxiety comes up. This is when the anger comes up. This is when the emotions start flowing. And those emotions don't stop flowing until you reach a point of comfort. Well, I got to go to work anyway. I didn't have time to do that. I got to go to work anyway. Then you bypass it. After a while, you just living in the bypass. Most of the times when we're trying to convince ourselves of starting our day, starting new processes, starting that actual routine, coming to that self-discipline, you got to move past that point of the bypass. You're looking for the bypass. Well, I can do it tomorrow. Think about it. How many times you done went to the gym, you worked out for a good 6 months, and then all of a sudden now you're starting to eat a certain way, and then that one time, oh, this is gonna be my cheat day. I'm gonna eat this instead of that. You keep giving yourself bypasses. After a while, you didn't cheat day turn into a cheat week turn into a cheat month turn into 6 months, and then now you're looking for a detox. Now it's time for me to detox. All because you were trying to convince yourself of why you were going to the gym. 9 times out of 10 was on the surface. The same thing in aspects of your healing process. You're convincing yourself, I'm going to do my shadow work. I'm convinced myself I'm going to do my shadow work until you get to a point to where the shadow's dense. The shadow's too dense. The emotions are too heavy. And then instead of, okay, because that abandonment, rejection, separation, whatever triggers inside of that space pops off, that's when you start to stray back. Okay, cool. I've came to enough of my shadow work. I'm going to go do this now. But now you're already there. This is the aspect of this is when we use our limitations. And then this is when you come into the space of now 15 motherfucking days straight, you done looked at conspiracy videos about an enemy outside of yourself. Something's stopping you. Now you're looking at something to feed to stop you. But in reality, you haven't built that space out yet. You don't understand that space. You ain't built out that space. This is when we come into the aspects of construction. I'm going to use another example. Before coming to this point, I had to understand and assess things. It's always the assessment and the auditing. As before, like when I first got into the aspects of the space to be able to actually, okay, cool, my meditation, I had to define what my meditation was. But before defining what meditation was for me, I had to define what was already in that spot. See, before the time of me being able to wake up at 4:30, and I had this feeling like I'm supposed to wake up and I'm ready to, I was so used to going to go get it. So I was always looking for a sense of stimulation. So what were the examples of my stimulation? Usually anytime throughout the week, the day, whatever it was, 9 times out of 10, I wasn't going to bed before 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. I wasn't going to sleep. I wasn't going to bed before then. I had to watch Sons of Anarchy. I had to watch something on TV. I had to finish watching a movie. I had to have some type of stimulation before going to bed. So naturally, before I even start a new cycle of what meditation means, in its simplest form, is to still the mind. It's not to clear the mind. It's to still the mind. To still the mind, to still my thoughts, to become aware of my thoughts, to become aware of my internal workings. I had to assess that I was going to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning full on stimulation. So until I defined and looked at these aspects, when I was meditating, setting my intentions, speaking my affirmations, I was just trying to convince myself my worth. This goes into the aspects of, think about the aspects of your day. If I'm going to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock in the a.m., I'm going to bed at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm calling myself capturing or taking control at the end of my day because work was stressful. My boss pissed me off. My girl pissed me off. Some family member called me on some bullshit and pissed me off on some shit. So this is my time. Between when I get home, since I'm finally getting home around 12 a.m., this is my time. I'm going to give myself what I feel like I deserve. Meanwhile, I'm just sitting on the fucking couch. Sitting on the couch, not doing shit. Looking for some type of stimulation. So, of course, when I wake up at 4 o'clock, I dread waking up at 4 o'clock. It's not because I didn't get enough rest. It was because I didn't give myself a reason to wake up. I wasn't giving myself a reason to wake up. I was so used to, and this is when we think about it, I was so used to the moment that I wake up, I pick up my phone. So I naturally build inside of my space. We don't think about how we do these things unconsciously. My phone is beside the bed. My phone is beside the bed, or it's in the bed with me. The remote's in the bed right beside me. So I'm setting myself up for the day of what my routine is going to be. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my phone and I'm going to look at Facebook. The first thing I'm going to do is pick up my phone and I'm going to look at TikTok, Instagram, social media. I'm going to look at the messages that came in even though I was asleep. I'm allowing my environment of comfort to program my identity. So if I look at a message and if some shorty sent me 16, 20, 25 85 fucking messages, where was I at? Where am I at? Where was I at? Why didn't I answer the phone? Why didn't I tell her good night and all those types of things? Then of course, now I'm angry. Now I'm irritated because this chick sent me all these messages. Now I'm irritated. That's going to be my identity for the day. My identity for the day is going to be irritated. My identity for the day is going to be irritated or to avoid something because I'm trying to convince myself. As long as I'm stuck trying to convince myself, I'm always trying to convince yourself is always leaving yourself in a limited state of restriction. It leaves you limited. It leaves you only looking at certain things. It leaves your space enough for your comfort zone, as opposed to me constructing my day. Go a little deeper into the aspects of me constructing my day. So now I'm learning my meditation. Now I'm learning to wake up. I'm learning to sit inside of this space. I'm learning to look at myself, but I'm still being triggered. This is the aspects we don't really understand. This is what I break down in classes. In the aspects of my meditation, I'm I'm trying to look at myself in my meditations. I'm grabbing YouTube videos. Much love, much love. I'm grabbing the YouTube video and I'm looking at the visualization on the YouTube video of the dude or the person, the figure sitting like this and the lights all around them. So now when I'm meditating, that's what I'm looking for. I'm trying to look at myself in a third person view of the lights surrounding me, and I'm surrounded by light and all of these things. Instead of me, I'm looking for context. Damn, I can't do that. Damn, it don't look like that when I do that. Damn, I don't feel like that whenever I meditate. I don't feel all free and free flowing and all good when I'm meditating. What do you feel? What are you feeling when you're meditating? I can't seem to still my mind and still my thoughts. What are those thoughts? What are those thoughts that you're having at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock when you first wake up, 5 o'clock, whenever you start? What are those thoughts? See, the aspect of the process when we're constructing is actually taking that assessment. I'm taking an assessment. I'm taking that assessment. That means, hey, I might need to wake up and I might need to write this stuff down. Similar to your dream, whatever it is. I might need to write some of this stuff down. Because this is a lot to keep held inside. Let me write this stuff down. Let me draw it out. All right, cool. Let me take that moment of time. Okay, cool. When I meditate, so now you're creating that path. Now you're constructing that space. You're actually rough drafting and constructing the space. Think about when you were in school. You were taught to do a rough draft, first draft, second draft, and the final revision. Same process. This is when we get into the aspects of you keep getting stuck in the conspiracy. We were never taught anything in school. You were taught shit in school. You just didn't know how to act. You didn't know how to apply it. You didn't know what to take and what to leave. Because you were so looking for the stimulation. You were looking for something uncertain. And aspects of trying to convince yourself of, you were looking at it from trying to convince yourself of why I'm going here, why I'm going to work, why I go to school. You're trying to convince yourself of things. Keeping yourself in that limited restriction. So you never could vet out your process. So now the beginning of my meditations were, all right, let me take a moment of time to write some shit out. After a while, when I started writing things out, I started looking at how I was writing things out and started formulating with my pen. And then after a while, that's when back in 2018, I came into the space of I started writing out the God thoughts. This is around the time when I was embracing, like, I'm a God. I'm seeing all the posts about you're a God, I'm a God, and all these things. But something naturally inside of me was like, all right, cool. I'm a God having thoughts. Let me write down these thoughts. Let me write them down. And then eventually that became the aspects of me writing out God thoughts. My blog posts, when I was putting out God thoughts every day. All of my prompts. That led into what I do now every time I'm dropping out healing prompts. The point of you constructing your space, and the thing that we get mixed up with disciplines and routines, the routine is the energetic frequency that you're inside of that space. The discipline is how you're learning to move with inside of that space. That way, for example, let's break down an example. Today I woke up, did my normal meditation, woke up, did my meditation, spoke my affirmations aloud, laughed with myself a little bit because I was stumbling over my words, but I was like, that means it's working. That means that's the spirit working. And then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna cut my hair. I said I'm gonna cut my hair. Cut off the sides, lined up the beard, redid my slashes, hopped in the shower, cleaned myself up. Then I was like, okay, why was that so easy to place into that spot? Me cutting my hair. Why was that so easy to put into that spot? I cut my hair on a Monday, cut my hair that day. I had to realize that I already had that programmed in. I've already been working on the processes of learning to cut my hair, learning to get everything right and line everything up, learning how to blend and do all the other good stuff with my fade and everything. I already started that process. If you were familiar with go on my TikTok, I had the videos like when I still had everything on the side of my head and I was actually learning how to cut my hair and going through that process. I had to go to the point of I had to understand that that's going to bring up what's necessary for when I say it. Whenever you set your intention, you set those initial intentions until you learn, and then you say your affirmations, so you can set the intention and learn how to separate from the outcome of saying that I'm setting my intention that moving forward, I'm going to take better care of myself. My affirmation goes into my space of I'm abundant, I'm prosperous, I'm wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm wake up in gratitude and things of that nature. Here's the thing that stops a lot of people. Here's the thing that stops a lot of y'all. Stops a lot of us. Stop me, you stop me a lot. Here's the thing that'll stop you. The original things that were inside of your space that you were abundant of. Conflict, drama, the abundance of your unresolved. The abundance of your unresolved. The prosperity or the grounding of your unresolved. The wealth of energy, emotional energy, your emotional intelligence at the level that it was at of your unresolved starts coming up. Your phone rings. You got an abundance. You got 80 text messages from your baby father, baby mother, ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, somebody that it's crafting a relationship inside of their mind. You got an abundance of those messages. In those messages, when you start reading them, you get irritated. You get anxious, you get antsy, you get aggy, you get aggravated as fuck. That's what you're abundant in. Your job hitting you up and telling you to come in early or take the day off, or you might have to work a double shift. That's what you're wealthy in. That's what you've attached your wealth to. See, your affirmation and your intentions are first setting the tone of clearing out what you convinced yourself of what you needed at a certain point in time. This is where we come into the aspects of separating yourself from the outcome. Because I'm so focused, if I set my intentions that I want to make more money, the outcome that I'm setting for is more money in a certain way, in a certain fashion. But if I set my intention clearly, this is the difference between unclear intentions and clear intentions. If I set my intention that I want to make more money, it's an unclear intention. Because behind that money is everything that I've defined to make money. But if I set my intention I open myself up to an opportunity to gain and learn new resources, new information. Now I open myself up to observe, and I'm separating that's the clear intention, and I'm separating myself from a certain outcome. The outcome of me being the law of detachment. That the separation from myself of I'm the good person and I've been working that job for 6.5 years. I deserve to get a raise. I don't know why they won't give me a raise. I've been there for 6 years. But you don't think about every fucking time that you sat there and asked for a raise for 6 years, every time that they gave you an offer for a different position, you said, nah, I ain't got time for all of that. I ain't got time to be working all this, these people in here doing all of these things and all that shit. You go down this whole list of shit trying to convince yourself of why you too good to take that position. But that was what you asked for. Instead of asking for the resource. Instead of asking for the aspects of, I set my intentions to open up into those resources. This leads into the aspects of, until I learned my job at that point in time and learned what my jobs were, what my job really was, I couldn't use it. But before even understanding what my job actually was for, instead of me sitting there with my job and what my job was actually for, I always went into the space of you looking at videos talking about they force you to work a job and now you got to make 3 times the rent and all of these things. You fall into this rabbit hole of information that fits your comfort zone. I'll never be able to get. But look at the original reason why you look at your original the last video is going to be on my YouTube channel pretty soon. You have to define in yourself that self-reflection. What was the original reason for my first job? My first job, my first place of work, what was my original reason for getting my first job? Because if you sit there and look at the original reason for your first job, the first job that you had, first relationship, whatever it may be, you're still using it. It's just playing off in the background, in the subconscious. It's just playing off in your subconscious. It's just in the subconscious. It's just playing off in the subconscious over and over and over again. It's been steadily being used. You just keep reinventing it. To sustain yourself in that. You want it to sustain being present rather than you being present. That's why you get every time I talk about triggers, your triggers, any trigger that happens is just letting you know where you haven't been present. Is letting you know where you have not been fully present. You have not been fully present inside of that space. I don't know how many times I would get upset at my job, but I was not fully present inside of that space. What was present? See, when you're going through that assessment process, that's when you're real. Okay, I wasn't present. So now, okay, I wasn't present. But then when I learned that aspect, okay, cool. Instead of me saying certain things, even because whatever you give your energy to, is what is going to nurture your intentions. Whatever you give your energy to is going to nurture your intentions. So if your intentions is in 6 months that you're going to be in a certain space with yourself in your job, whatever it may be, whatever you're giving the most attention to is going to nurture that intention. That's why a lot of times whenever what you wanted or needed comes up, you're not fully present to actually receive it. You don't know what to do with it. Ooh, a shiny box. I don't know what to do with this box. I don't know what to do with it. Oh my God, I got this job offer. In fucking LA. Shit. I can't get a plane ticket. I ain't got no license. I can't get no plane ticket. I ain't got a license. I don't have the resources, and I haven't got the resources in order to take on that next stage, to go to that next step. I haven't constructed that yet. I've been putting it off and doing other shit. We're all guilty of putting shit off and doing other shit, and then not realizing that we develop that character, that identity that's going to maintain that for us. It keeps going. It's going to keep maintaining that for you until you say, okay, stop. It's not going to stop when you tell it to stop. You got to give it the same way that you gave it a reason to go, with the same reason you got to give it the reason to stop. So sitting in it, so when you're sitting there saying affirmation that I'm in gratitude, and then you got the intentions to wake up in gratitude, and then you get mad at what comes up to you, and you haven't got to a point where you can thank it. You can't thank that person. You can't thank that job. You can't thank that job. You can't thank that person. You can't thank what's going on. You can't thank the rain that you got to sit your ass down in the house because it's raining and your car's fucked up so you can't drive nowhere. And you can't thank the rain like, goddamn, thank you for the fucking rain. I can sit down and now I can actually study. Because now I have no excuses to do the work. I have no excuses. I have all the opportunity in the world because I asked for the resources. I can line everything back up to the intention. When you're properly constructing your space, you can line everything back to your intention. When you're properly constructing when you're actually constructing your space, you can align everything with your affirmations. So when you set that tone, if you're having those glitches inside of your process, it's just it's triggering something off. Instead of you saying, nah, I'm not gonna sit with this right here. I don't know. Instead of me saying I don't know how to sit with that, I'm gonna say I don't have time to sit for that, or I gotta do this, this, and this. This is what I need to learn. This is something that I need to learn. This is something that I need to stop putting off. And then that brings up those feelings of, I've been doing this, I've done all of this work. Here's the thing about the work that we do. This is one thing that I had to learn to say about the work. Everything that I've done, everything that I did, the time that I did it, it got paid for. Every time that I was inside of a space, everything that I did, the moment that I did it, it was paid for. I got my pay on return. I got paid as soon as I did it. The thing that was stopping me in that space, or saying the line of, yo, I'm doing all this shit for all these people, and now I'm doing all this shit for all these fucking people, and I end up being broke, or I end up being in the end. I had to get to a point where I was like, yo, I gave them gifts. That was the gift to them. They used that gift as they could use it. The thing with me was, I couldn't sit there and thank them for accepting my gift, because I was so rooted in being rejected or not being accepted. That was the reason that I gave the gift. Honest reason I gave them the gift, that gift of myself, was for the fear of rejection, for the fear of being abandoned, for the fear of being separation, some emotional void that I was not yet ready to face. I wasn't ready to deal with that emotional void. So of course, I didn't get what I wanted back. What did you want back? You can't ask for, here's the biggest thing in the aspects of when it comes to asking for affirmations, what I've learned. You don't stop asking for what you do not already have. Stop asking for what is not already present. That means internally, you don't have what reflects that. You're always going to get what you are and where you are at. You're always going to get where you are and where you are at. Every single time. Every single time. The law of absolute. You're going to get it every single time. You're going to get exactly you're going to get exactly what is in the cadence and rhythm of where you are and where you are at. Every single time. Until I understood that, I did not understand when I would go to work. After closing the night before, after being off on a day, or going to work that next rise, and going into that building, and it would be a state of mourning actually, and the fryers wouldn't be clean. Peace. The fryers wouldn't be clean. The grill wouldn't be clean. They didn't close the open. They didn't do none of the shit that they were supposed to do, that I felt they were supposed to do, that I would do. But I had to stop and think with that process. I had to stop and think about it. Take a second. I had to sit there with myself like, wait. Every day that I wake up and I'm having my conversation with myself, I'm telling myself I'm the fucking best. I'm the fucking greatest. I'm a fucking beast. I'm a fucking god. I'm amping myself up. Can't nobody do shit like I do it. I'm telling myself this shit every fucking morning. I've said it for so long that now all of my actions are now matching that. So of course, if I go to work and I spoke the affirmation, can't nobody do shit like I do it, then of course when I go to work, everything that I do nobody else can do. My thoughts, my emotions are conducive to that space. My emotions are based on being accepted. We're going to use that acceptance wound I used to have, that acceptance wound. So of course, when I go to work, until I accept that I said that nobody else can do what I do, of course, I'm always going to get my acceptance of doing what I do is always going to get triggered. So I keep trying to convince myself this is the way that I convince myself that I'm the best. This is why I restrict myself. But if I avoid if I avoid going through that processing, what do? 9 times out of 10, you're going to be sitting there mad at work. I'm mad at work the entire day. I'm working through the anger. I'm working angry. I move really, really fast when I'm angry because I'm moving really, really fast in the anger. Moving really, really fast. Don't talk to me. Don't say shit to me. I'm still that type of way, but don't talk to me. Don't bring no extra work to me. All that type of shit. So now I'm denying new resources. All unconsciously, while trying to convince myself about what I said earlier on in the week, or earlier on in the month, that I'm the motherfucking best. Don't bring no shit to me. I'm telling myself I'm the fucking best. So of course it's gonna keep coming to me. I don't know how to pace my space. See, that's the aspect when we step into that state of construction. So if I'm thinking about me constructing something, and a lot of times we come into that space and you want to construct something anew, that requires a new set of standards and structure. I haven't built that out yet. This is when we get into the space of the moment that you started, okay, I'm going to start my own business, start my own company. We can talk about, we're going to go to the pandemic year of you starting your own shit. Energetically, I'm going to be more than my spiritual alignment and all this stuff and this, whatever. But you're only going to be able to connect to what's already familiar to you. See, when we're stuck in this state of convincing, you're always going to try to attach to something that is familiar to you. It has to be familiar to you energetically. And the only way that you get full access to it is once you activate. I've always talked about the 5 points. You got to activate the 5 points, the 5 senses in the aspects of that true feeling. You have to step out of the context. Why do I keep attracting this? Because this keeps me in a certain state of mind with my security with myself. Why does that seem to always keep happening to me? Because that attaches to a certain line of me keeping myself secure. So I don't have to develop any new skills. I've talked about this before. The aspects of your interpersonal skills. The aspects of the interpersonal skills and attachment to your intuition versus your trauma, versus your unresolved. If I'm still using the aspects of the cadences of, it's not about, and when I'm working with my clients, it's not about you trying to separate from something ever happening to you. It happened. It's not about separating like it never happened. It's about coming to a point of acceptance with it and being able to, you'll know that you have came to that new space and you're sitting in that new space, the new shift, the new earth, when you're able to, can you thank your enemy? Can you thank your enemy? Can you thank your ex for what they taught you? Thank you for the lessons that you taught me. Whether you know it or not, consciously or unconsciously, you taught me a lot. You taught me a lot about myself. You taught me a lot about the aspects of me vetting myself. If you don't do that, you're going to be sitting there, and it can be something as simple as your whole vetting process. How far along do you go into your vetting process? How far along do you go into your vetting process before? How long, how thorough is your vetting process before you start doing things inside of a certain space? before you jump into. How long do you go past the point of arousal? And this when we talk about the heart chakra, the beta wave, arousal, awakened, and awareness. Arousal, awakened, and awareness. Those three ventricles of the heart, the beta wave, the heart space. How far do you go past arousal to come into the awakened state to actually look at it? See, a lot of times when we're sitting there trying to convince ourselves that we're so deserving of something, when you're stuck in that state of arousal, when we're stuck in this state of arousal, 9 times out of 10, you start formulating right here in the arousal point. So 9 times out of 10, when we think about arousal, we think about stimulation, we're looking at the last relationship, you're looking at the last friendship, you're looking at the last job, you're looking at the last situation, and you're trying to play this balancing act of, okay, well, this and this and this were good, and this and this and this was bad. So if this person inside of this state does these things that are good for me, or good to me inside of that space, then I can start doing my aspect. That's too early in your vetting process. You're moving off arousal. That's why 3 months, 2 months, 2 weeks, however long you go through your vetting process in that job, relationship, whatever. Think about it. Even your job got a 90-day rule. Every job, whether you know it or not, has a 90-day probationary period. That's 3 months. That's 3 months off top. 3 months. That's to get you out of the arousal phase. That's to get you out of the, ooh, they got shiny new knives here. Or, oh my God, they got their printer works. Or, oh my God, you working at McDonald's. Oh my God, the ice cream. Oh my God, the ice cream machine never worked. The ice cream machine never worked at McDonald's. So you're aroused. You're all excited about all the new shiny shit. So you never come into that state of awakenness. That's coming into that state of true awakening. Awakening yourself to the space. Awakening yourself to those skills. That skill set. Okay, cool. I did this, this, and this at my last job. And I did these things, like use an example. You at your last job and you notice that they didn't have certain equipment. So since they didn't have this certain level of equipment, I learned another process to deal with that over there. But the same energy that I put into learning that process here, that's going to be that same auditing. This is coming into that state of awakening. Realizing the things that you did inside of that space and why. Allowing myself to have that feel, allowing myself to sit long enough with that feeling in order to cultivate my awakening inside of this space. Now I can come into the state of awareness, that state of the full flow. Your awakening is the ebbs. That's that ebb aspect in there. Your awareness is the aspect of that flow. How do I flow inside of this space? Am I trying to convince myself, or am I actually what have I constructed that aligns with this? What have I constructed that aligns with this? Where am I at in this current point in time in this? I've laid out a list of questions in the aspects of, let me look at myself. Am I present? Let me look at my conversations. Let me look at my first 3 weeks. Let me look at this, take a root analysis. Let me take a root analysis of all of my conversations that I have throughout a week. Remember, you're a whole fucking scientist. Being an occultist, being an alchemist, you're a whole fucking scientist. That means you must subscribe to the scientific method. They didn't teach me nothing in school. They taught you the scientific method in school. I had a fat fucking teacher. I had a fat guy as my teacher. Every time, by the time he got halfway through explaining the scientific process, he started using analogies about cakes being baked in ovens because he was getting hungry. But I digress. But looking inside of that space with yourself, when you're going through that method of process, where do you usually, this is when we allow our minds to wander and you think something's about to be bad, why do you usually go to that bad thought, that negative thought? Let me trace that back. If I'm now, this is where I look at balance. I'm already in balance. I got to assess my balances. If a lot of my thoughts go into a negative space, that means that means there's some deep unresolved in there I really need to sit and deal with. So instead of me thinking about going forward, instead of me now Since I'm separating myself from the outcome, now I can look at different results. Now I can look at the different aspects of it. Now I can look at the different opportunities that are now around me. I don't need a relationship. I need to go sit down with somebody. Okay, who do I usually sit down with? I usually sit down with that one friend that always telling me that you don't need this and you just need to go back to school, or they bring up certain issues that I sit with these people long enough till they trigger me. I can then say to them in reply, but what about you? Just think about the things that you say in your conversations. And you're taking the root analysis of your conversations. How many of your conversations always lead back to you trying to shoot back at the person? So all of your conversations are based on bias. So now when you think about that bias, all of these conversations are based on bias. By the time something new comes into your space, you're thinking about it fixing something. It has to it appeases your current skill set so it can fix something. And this is when we get deeper into the aspects of what therapy is. When I break down with actual going through the process of therapy. I was watching what was I watching the other day? I was watching I was watching a lot. My Death Day, Earth Day weekend comprised of watching a bunch of podcasts and just chilling out. I was watching T-Pain Nappy Boy Radio podcast, and he had Chico Bean on there. And Chico Bean, before he was a comedian, he worked in mental health. And he was like, yo, this isn't a lot of the aspects of therapy and things of that nature. It isn't catered to us. Me watching that video and me sitting there looking at the video, watch me as I'm watching it. I was like, damn, why does everything now seem to align with what I'm doing? Damn, everything really does align with what I'm doing. And I'm going through that process. I'm jumping through I'm jumping through all of these realities, looking at all of this shit. So I'm now realizing like, oh shit, damn, that's crazy. As you're constructing your space and you're now redefining your structure, your standard, your new standards, your boundaries, your structure, your stability, this is what we mean by less. When we say less is more, if you hear the line less is more, the less is tapping, less is more is I need less external and I'm looking for more for me and in this case, in this context of this space, I'm looking for more resources. I'm in a space of resources. So my ability to learn is based on resources. To stay the student. My ability to teach, so now naturally my ability to teach is when I've broken down these resources to reacclimate them into a way that can be used. That's the process of construction versus convincing that every fucking week you sitting there and I'm going to go live and I'm going to talk about the conspiracy of the UFOs or some new conspiracy. You can't break that down any further than what it is, because that requires you to look at yourself. Why did that trigger you personally? Why did that trigger you? Why did that get to you personally? Now you think about the aspects, and now you're building the space of transparency. I'm fully transparent. Everything I've done since 2008, we started 2018 when I started putting everything out. Everything I've done since 2018 was showing transparency. None of the things I was doing was trying to get something. It was separate. I was going through a process. Everything from that process of me learning how to put a podcast together. In order for me to learn how to put a podcast together, I was listening to podcasts. I looked at things that I was going. You're stepping from that state of trying to. Your comfort zone leaves you to competing. Your comfort zone leaves you to constantly need to compete. This is when we come into that alpha mentality, because you can't break into the heart space and actually feel anything. Leaves you in a state of that competition. When you're in this state of construction with yourself, that's the aspect of contrast. I'll use does go into the podcast example. When I looked at most podcasts, earlier on, most podcasts ain't got no background music while they're talking. Ain't no background music. Ain't no music. There's no music. There's no flow of music to control that ebb of what's being said, the substance that's being said. So I was like, okay, cool. I want to do music behind my podcast episodes. I ain't know shit about music theory, making music, looping beats. Didn't know I do none of that shit. The first parts of my podcast, I was on freebeat.com or some site or some app or whatever, and that beat was long enough to place behind the opening in certain parts of the podcast. Working through that feeling of no one's going to listen to it, no one's going to accept me, because these things do come up when you're doing something new, of course, naturally, but working through those statements and then saying to myself, I'm not doing it for views. I'm not doing it for that. The basis of what I'm doing is I'm doing this so I can learn it. That's the transparency. So as I'm evolving my podcast, and now I learned, okay, cool. The first app it was some little app that had like some cartoon like fucking beats and shit behind it, and I started making those beats and trying to make those work, learning how to set everything and loop them and put them together. Then the next level came up when I was like, okay, cool. Now I downloaded Soundtrap. That's another app. Downloaded Soundtrap. Now I'm making my damn music. Now I'm actually making the beats. So now I got to so now as I'm in this process, I have to look at my space and the opportunities I have inside of my space. What have I built out? What have I built out? When am I going to have time to work on music? It became available because after 2019, my process, get off work, pop on the podcast every Monday, work on the podcast. So that means as soon as I get off work on Monday or if I'm off on a Monday, the podcast got to be done on Monday, release it on Tuesday. As I kept going through this process and allowing the momentum to build with myself of becoming sitting more attuned to that space, in alignment with that space, now I'm not working Tuesdays. Until COVID happened. Oh my God, another disaster happened. COVID happened. Yay, COVID happened. COVID was the best day of my life. Yeah, on the other note, it was like, damn, I can't work that much and I'm out of work. But COVID had me out of work for a whole month. I had 30 days to apply what I had learned in my new space, the new shift or the new earth. So in 30 days, when my boss hit me April 13th of 2021, or was it 2020? Whenever COVID happened, I don't even remember anymore. But April 13th was the date, and she texted me that night, and she was like, hey, I need your schedule. I know you have your stuff going on, but I need your schedule and your availability. I sat and looked at that message that night, went to sleep, woke up, and I sent her a message back, and I will not be returning. She was like, okay, that's cool. Send your 2 weeks, write your formal 2 weeks notice and email it to me. All right, bet. That was a championing moment for me in that space. Because this was like the first time when I look at it, this is the first time that I left on my own terms. I set the intention that I'm moving on my own terms. So that was one of my first examples of moving on my own terms. From there, I went through the process. I'm sitting in that now that I'm out of the something, which was my job, which is how I did everything. Now I'm moving into that nothingness again. That fearful, that space that if you have not resolved those emotional voids, the attachments, the issues, the things that you're still trying to convince yourself of, those things go into the nothingness with you. Those would be the first things that pop up. That's why every time you try to do something new, the first thing that pops up is a bunch of all the old stuff. So you want to sit there and detail the old stuff first. How are you detailing it? Are you detailing it based on construction or convincing yourself? Yeah, I'm a good guy. I'm a good work, da-da-da. This is where you lose access to that energy that's back there in that space. Similar to when we think about ancestor veneration, working with your ancestors, working with the spirits, things of that nature. You lose access if you haven't resolved it. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that over and over and over again. You lose access because you haven't resolved it. If you have not resolved the issues with your mother, the issues with your mom, that means coming to that point of acceptance, apology, and thanking her, and clearing that space. Anytime something comes through in that feminine energy, that new feminine imprint of nurturing, guidance, it's going to be stifled by that. That's what's going to create that blockage. So now you're looking for a bypass. So now you're saying, now you got deep mother wounds in an aspect. Now you're trying to jump into a new relationship, or you got a female boss, and now you have this unbridled hatred towards this person, but it's not towards them. You're creating a bypass. You're trying to create a bypass into that space. Please prove to me that you're not like everybody else. You're not like my old boss. You're not like this. So you're still now you're trying to create a bypass. Coming to the spiritual aspect, this is when you try to come to one of us practitioners and you try to come to us for love spells, or, hey, do you do jar rituals? And if you come into my inbox, I'm going to tell you, I will put you in a jar. I ain't got no problem telling you I'll put you in a jar. I'll put you in a jar for a little bit. How about I give you a mirror ritual instead of that love ritual? When's the last time that I asked the questions to men and women at the same fucking time? When's the last time you sat in front of the mirror, butt ass fucking naked, with a candle in front of it? When's the last time you looked at yourself in the mirror and just sat there and had a conversation? This is my vetting process. See, the point of you constructing your space and then coming into alignment with your purpose is you construct your space to where it's a natural vetting process. It's a natural vetting process. That means my boundaries are already in. I don't have to always constantly convincing yourself is every time you hop on Facebook, Instagram, and whatever, and you feel the inherent need to express your boundaries, and it's not in a basis of teaching. It's not in a basis of teaching. If every time you come onto your Facebook, your social media, or whatever post you post, and you posted 17 posts of bullshit, 17 posts of bullshit, that means you posted 17 ways for somebody to access your energy, whether to laugh, say whatever comment in there, and then you post a post about your boundaries. All of those posts that you set about BS and everything else is what's going to empower that boundary. That's what led to you having to make a boundary post. But all this showing you, remember the triggers that's showing you where you ain't present. So now you sitting there like, man, I'm mad that people keep. Did you vet it? What are you creating now? It should, whether it's positive or negative, you should be able to transmute it, right? You the alchemist, you're a occultist, you're an alchemist, you're a metaphysician, right? So it's letting you know exactly where you are. There's nothing wrong with having to sit the fuck down. You can't, if you're always stuck in the state of seeking stimulation, of course the shit's supposed to trigger you, because that's what you're looking for. I need that to trigger me. That's why you got people, that's why if you go up and down right now, everybody's talking about UFOs. The same energy, different topics. UFOs. I don't know why people are still talking about reptilians when in the same instance, somebody will post a Bobby Hemmett video talking about you are the reptiles. It's the Kundalini energy. I don't know why people are still talking about other motherfuckers are reptilians. You get stuck in some type of gender war. You keep going through the same exact process because your emotional intelligence, your emotional intelligence, your nutritional intelligence, your mental, you're stuck in a state of intellect. So your intellect matches the state of being in a state of intellectual lust keeps your emotional intelligence at the intellectual level, which means you understand the context of hot and cold. You have an idea of what love is. You have an idea of what hate is. You have an idea of what guilt is. As long as inside of your space, you can convince yourself that, yo, I didn't do it like that, so yeah, I'm not guilty of anything. Instead of you being able to naturally sit inside of that space and be able to be like, yeah, I've been guilty in my own way. What is my depth? How have I created my experiences based on guilt? How have I created my experiences based on insecurity, being overly aggressive, things? How have I done it? Remember, you're the scientist. Instead of trying to convince yourself that you've never done it or you're better than somebody, because I never say I'm better than somebody. Simply saying that you're not better than somebody is going to be led after because I don't do this, this, and this. You see how it voids it out? Emotional void literally voids it out. I don't think I'm better than people because I do this, this, and this. Usually everything you state after I'm not better than somebody is indirectly saying that you're better than somebody. Usually every time that you say you're a good person, usually everything after you say after that indirectly makes you a good person based on somebody being bad or whatever it may be. So you're stuck in that state of convincing yourself. So you never create an actual routine. This is where we get into the aspects. You get stuck in a state of pageantry. So you'll sit there and you did a whole candle ritual. You burn all the candles, you burn all the sigils, but what was powering those intentions? If you can't tell yourself what was powering those intentions, what led power to those intentions, the emotional level you were on, the why you did it, how can you explain? Of course you can't explain how you did it. Man, I did this and it was supposed to do this. I saw somebody do this and they got $1 million. Okay. Did you look at what they were doing before the $1 million and before doing it and after doing it? Or did you only look at the point when they got the $1 million? Oh my God, she did this, this, and this, and she got a man. Did you look at what she was doing before she got the man and after she got the man? Did you look at what he was doing before he got the girl and after he got the girl? Did you look at those things, or did you just look at simply that they got what you wanted? That's another level of fucking you up. Because if you're not constructing inside of your space, if I'm too busy working and putting my work in and doing my shit, doing my dance, I don't really have time to react to other shit. That's when I know I'm actually inside of my process. When I really don't have time to look at other people's shit, other people's stuff. Now that I've done that for so long, and now I'm in that state of alignment, the things that need to come up, when they need to come up, as they need to come up, as they want to come up, as I desire, because I need not, want not, everything's desired in alignment. Anything that's based on that alignment of that spectrum comes into play. That's the having fun with it. That's the excitement of having fun with it. That's me like, nigga, I'm excited as shit. Now if my messenger if I'm looking in my messenger, looking in my messages, I'm excited. At whatever comes, I'm like, ooh, that's the feeling that matches my feeling. That's the thing that matches my thought. That's on the wavelength with me. And now I can engage with it. As opposed to me disengage, because instead of me constantly needing to say that I need to keep detaching. If you need to keep detaching, 9 times out of 10, you're disassociating with things. Remember, anything in moderation is everything is alright in moderation. But if I have to keep telling myself that I need to keep disassociating with certain people every month, I need to stop disassociating with this because it's not getting me where I need to get to. 9 times out of 10, you only do it till you get what you need, then you stop. And the same way that you stopped is the same way you're going to start. So the moment that it runs out, you'll stop it. You'll start again. So you have no actual routine. You have no actual discipline. Your day is set by everybody else. Your day is set by everything else. You don't have the ability to move. You don't have the ability to move and put things inside of those positions. You don't have the ability. use an example, you don't have the ability to, if it's a Monday, like today is a Monday, I'm doing a live. Tomorrow, I got appointments. So in this same scape of time, what I'm doing now, I'm doing this same thing energetically tomorrow on Tuesday. Wednesday, tomorrow I got 4 appointments. Wednesday, I got 2. They're later on in the day. So the energy from Monday, energetic wave that I'm in on Monday today, same energetic wave that I'm going to be in on Tuesday, I'm going to use that same energetic wave. So if I'm not teaching, I'm learning. So Tuesday, teaching, working with my clients. So the beginning of Wednesday, I'm going to be learning some shit. What do I put inside of that space? You only can put there what you already have. So if you sitting there talking about you want to, trying to think of some shit, you want to make more money, you only going to put there what you already have. That means you're going to go up and down your damn timeline, up and down YouTube, up and down the internet looking for get rich quick schemes. Why? Because your whole life way you define money was based on get rich quick schemes. So of course you're going to look for more get rich quick schemes. Get rich or die trying. So you're going to spend all that energy in there, get irritated, burn out, then you're going to go into your next day, aspects of your day. The aspects of you staying in the aspects of that flow is that no matter what goes into that, whatever comes up into that space, you're able to face. But in order to be able to face anything that comes up, I got to do that internal work. I got to be sitting there doing this internal work. I got to be doing the internal work, working with myself. That way I step out of that. That way whenever something comes up in that arousal, that feeling actually comes up, I'm actually able to feel it. Now I'm actually able to feel the feeling of when I'm sitting down in my meditations and I see all of my lights move. I see all of my everything moving around me. I see how far my auric field goes. I can see how far it goes. I can see those things. So now I can actually create that space. So now as I'm actually going forward, because I've constructed it. So now whatever something comes up, I can accept. Since I've accepted myself for where I'm at, I can accept it at where it's at. Is this in alignment with me currently? How do I approach it? I don't have to engage everything that comes past me. That's a whole other conversation when I get into the aspects for the aspect of your urges versus your vices. We're going to get into that later on. But I'm going to give a little bit now. Thinking about that space of yourself. If every time that you see something, you're automatically thinking, where does your mind go? Let's use an example of man or woman. If every time you see a chick, your first thought is what you would do to her sexually. My guy, you haven't learned the difference between sexual attraction and physical attraction. Same thing with sis. Sis, goddess, queen, whatever you want to call yourself. For everybody that's going to watch this video later. Same thought process. If you cannot differentiate between the physical attraction and the spiritual attraction, the sexual attraction, this is the sexual attraction is the energetic attraction, the spiritual, the intelligence versus the physical attraction. Your urges are going to eat your ass alive. Your urges are going to eat your ass alive. You're going to try to keep convincing yourself that where you're at right now is deserving of that. So what do you naturally do? You do everything that's set within your skill set until you get it. And if you don't get it, then you react. The same reaction you don't give to it when you don't get it. Same energy you're going to put behind when you do get it is the same energy you're going to put behind it when you don't get it. Same energy. The yes and the no are the same. The yes and the no are the same. So you'd be sitting there, man, I'm mad because she... Okay, why? Did she say, even though she said you didn't have enough money, why are you triggered by that? Do you understand the difference between money, the outcome, and the resource. You understand the difference between the outcome and the resource? You understand the difference between the outcome and the resource? Or are you still stuck in when you were, when I work with my clients, are you still stuck in that 11-year-old space, the high school space, the middle school space of you didn't pay for anything, or you were hustling when you were little, so the old OG on the corner gave you the pack and said go sell that at school, and you were selling little dime bags at school? Where's your mind actually at? Where are you at with your aspects of your process? Because I use the example for me now, like my whole process over the last 2 years, this would be the third year. Over the last 2 years has been actually establishing the financial process. But I had to go through a process of breaking down why it wasn't happening, going past the what wasn't happening and looking at the why. That means going back down my family line, the family lineage. This is when we talk about doing generational healing. It's more than just saying, well, grandmama was a pimp and granddaddy was a pimp or that. It's going into the aspects of what that created. That was emotional literacy. The byproduct of emotional intelligence is financial literacy. A byproduct of emotional intelligence is your nutritional literacy. Everything starts as a thought, goes through the stream of your emotions, and comes back up the other end as a aspect of a literacy. That literal point. That's the absolute. Everything that is going to go through the aspects of your emotion and manifest as one of these points. So for everybody that always talks about this shit over, but you got a 3-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, you have a child that is going to have access to your energy when you leave, and you haven't set up the terms of how they can access your energy, i.e. you ain't set up a will, a trust, an estate, you ain't got nothing set up, they're simply going to have to pick up where you left off. The same thing that we talk about in aspects that we're going to make these conversations normal, the same thought process of convincing yourself they got to start where you did. So now you got 15 million books at your house. You got every Bobby Hemmett. You got every soap. You got, Serious Media Times, DVD and tape at your house. And you want your kids to go read through that shit because you didn't create anything to synthesize it. That's how they're going to access your energy. That's why motherfuckers keep coming back, because you ain't built the shit out yet. It's a different process to going through your healing process and then building it out and then deconstructing that and building something further out that becomes limitless based in your purpose. It's a big difference, except for this saying shit's over. And then you get excited every time someone says there's a new shift coming, there's a new earth coming. I've been living on my new earth for the last 6 years. I've been living in my new ship. I'm still using energy similar, the same aspect of motherfuckers talking about. I'm still spending money from back that ass up. I'm still spending money from more money, more problems. Is the same way that I'm using my energy. I'm still using energy from my first shift. I'm still using the crops and populating from the first new earth that I would create and gave into my space. So I'm not really looking forward to a new shift. I'm in gratitude for the new shift because I know how to use it. I know how to work within it. Instead of me saying, that's like, remember when everybody was talking about we have superpowers? Oh my God, the shit gonna hit, we all gonna get superpowers. Same thought process. You're still stuck within the same convincing of when we think about your grandmother, grandmom, your mom, your parents and everything, when they talk about it's the end of days. The same way you're trying to convince yourself of a new shift, same way they're using it, it's the end of days. Go read the book of Revelations. You saying it's a new shift. Go look at the new panic video. Go look at this new video. Trying to convince yourself because you're not going through the process of constructing. That shit should become remedial at a point in time. I've talked about this before. That shit should become remedial at a point in time. I don't know for example, for me, I don't know the last time I actually looked at a panic lecture. I just got to a point where I didn't have to look at it anymore. I don't know the last time I looked at a Bobby Hemmett video. No, I don't have this need to look at it anymore. It's not saying that it's not saying from a form of disrespecting them. You dig what I'm saying? But I'm in my purpose, in my space. The information that they brought to the surface, I'm now parenting as something different, as something new. I've now created a new space. I've created the new platform of spirit, actual, we always talked to like all of our, we talked about it for years and years and years and decades. Yo, we need therapy that's in line with us. I got that hit. I was like, all right, cool. Let me create the program. I keep hearing it. It's hitting me a certain way. That's when you know you're inside of your process. Got that good old sweet sweeper going around cleaning shit. But yeah, the main point of your processing, coming into this main point of your actual processing, is learning not to get stuck in that state of arousal. Is learning not to get stuck in that state of arousal. It's very easy to get stuck in the state of arousal, especially if you have not vetted your energy. Getting stuck in the state of arousal, for an example, is you went and got the whole chakra book and you started unlocking your chakras. Cleaning the old shit out the mess. I love it. It was beautiful. Going into that space with yourself, like use an example, you clearing out your chakras, and now you opened up all of your chakras. You didn't open up your root chakra. You didn't open up all of these chakras. Convincing yourself that, okay, I have ascended because I've opened up all of my chakras. I've raised my kundalini energy. Anybody that has truly unlocked their kundalini energy knows that process is similar to any fucking detox or any fucking fast. When I first did my first dragon breath meditation and unlocked my kundalini and had that shit, I was hot for a whole fucking week. I was fucking sweating every fucking day. I could not drink enough water. I could not eat enough fucking fruit. The shit was fucking ridiculous. Everything that I saw had my mind everywhere. Because that process but it was a process of cleaning myself out to use the energy. I wasn't used to allowing my energy. I didn't understand the process of allowing my energy to cycle and go to its highest point and not burn out. I wasn't used to carrying the torch that fucking high. I was used to carrying the torch right here to my solar plexus and be like, yep, I'm a motherfucking G. This is my shit. Until I learned to go through the cycle. As opposed to the same thing with your chakras. You opened up your whole root chakra system, security and grounding, but you got a whole bunch of unresolved issues in that space. And that's what gets to come up to the surface, and that's what comes up to the top. That's why you starting to cry and shit. You need to go through the actual process. You actually need to go through the process of, maybe I need to write this shit down. Maybe I need to sit with somebody outside of my comfort zone, and I need to actually sit down and actually talk about bring these things to the surface and actually talk about them and work on them and learn them from a new perspective. Allow my perspective to be challenged. Versus you opened up all your chakras, now you got upset, now you running around emotionally raw. My chakras is open. And then you saw a post that said you were an empath, not understanding that all of this shit got levels to it. There's the unaware empath, that's the motherfucker that feel drained all the time. And there's the empowered empath, that's the motherfucker that knows how to transmute the energy. There's the unaware empath, that's the one that's sitting over here that always thinks that because they have not dealt with their unresolved negatives of conflict, all they attract is conflict. So they think, because I'm feeling everybody's energy in here is negative. You have to ask yourself the question, why am I feeling all this energy that is negative? Why am I feeling all that energy? What is that lead? Let me sit with that and see what it's leading me to. I'm having all these issues with women. Women, y'all having issues with other women and shit in that nature. Ladies, why? What is that reflective of? What are they saying that is what are they saying that is in conducive in an alignment or an attraction to something that you have not resolved in a conversation, whether it be with somebody in your life? Fellas, same thing, and then interchange it for women in that space. You have to have that conversation. You have to develop yourself inside of that space. Remember, this shit is not a fucking race. You trying to race to the ending, realizing that there is no ending. Every time you level up, it's another beginning. That shit goes in a cycle. When you got here, that was the end. When you came into your body, I've said this before. When you dropped down into this avatar, that was the ending. That was the ending of you running around like a wild ass motherfucking person. Running around wild. There's a reason that you had to come down here. Running around wild as fuck. That's why when you came down here, and since you didn't understand that spot, you started, what did you do? Soon as you became an adult, you were grown. You started running around wild as fuck. Soon as you grew a print in your sweatpants, you started running around wild as fuck. Soon as you grew boobs or you got the attention of somebody, you started running around wild as fuck. And then you took that same shit into your spiritual shit. So your traumatic psychosis became spiritual traumatic psychosis. So then, because I don't know about you, but most of my dreams and most of my times traveling around, there's no conflict. I'm not in a war somewhere. I'm not fighting some shit. And when I am fighting, I'm usually leading it, or I can control out the outcome. It's no longer, oh my God, I'm not going to come back down and be like, yeah, there's a war. Yes. Always going to be a war. How else do you get stronger? How else do you get stronger without going through the battles? You have to translate those battles into what battles you're going through and you're not dealing with here. But that's one of the things that I learned in my aspect, and that's why I do what I do. And I've created that. That's what a part of my purpose was, creating the space of actual being a spiritual therapist, being that occult psychoanalyst, using these things and simplifying those aspects. Do I know everything? Hell no. Never gonna know everything. But what I do know and what I do know how to build in is the understanding of constructing it. Being okay with not knowing something and not having to have the answer. Looking at myself and sitting with myself like, okay, cool. I don't have the answer, but I have the space to actually learn it. Rather than getting stuck in something. You want to be I'm a whole god, I'm a whole goddess, but you still subscribing to something outside of yourself. Allow myself to breathe. This takes us into the process of this collective reading. We're looking at King of Cups energy. We're looking at King of Cups energy. This is a moment in time to look in a point of reflection. At the things that are inside of your cup. If your cup is overflowing, what is overflowing from your cup? If your cup is empty, what is the residue inside of your cup? What is the residue inside of that cup? Right now, you can, whether you're feeling like your shit's overflowing and is going, this is a moment, either way, in the aspects of the state of gratitude, looking at that cup and what's overflowing from your cup. If there's some shit inside of your cup that you really ain't really fucking with and you don't like it, it's time to look at what is that? When's the last time that I washed out this cup? If your cup's empty in that aspect of that space, in the same aspect of the energy, it's time to look at it. It's time to actually look at it and take that time, be like, oh, that's the shit that's been flowing around a lot lately. That's why I've been doing this. That takes us into the space of the aspects of that nine of coins. The reason your cup is overflowing or you're getting that backflow motion is because now we're coming into that new cycle, especially with Pisces transitioning and the Pisces energy coming up and all that stuff. You're now inside of that space of the transition of that old cycle. That means there's going to be a lot of shit that's going to be triggering you in a way that's going to force you. Don't fight what comes up. Don't fight the feeling, the thought process that comes up. Do not call it intrusive. Stop getting stuck in calling everything. That's an intrusive thought. That is not one of my thoughts. The only way that it can intrude is the only way something can intrude your space is if you have not secured the presence of whatever emotional point that is. The only way something can intrude your space is if you have not secured in where it's coming through. The wound is where the light's going to come out and shine itself out there. You're in the aspects of the end of that cycle of what happens a lot of times when we go into these spaces when we're assessing our cups, a lot of the times is you're looking at what you were tethered to. See, in order to create that new construction, the new grounding, the new fertile earth, that new nurturing, you got to look at what you're still tethered to. A lot of times, that's our comfort zone. You'll sit in that space and you're looking at like, oh my God, that was actually good. That it actually worked, but you were tethered to it. It was a tethering point. It tethered you to it. And that tethering kept you anchored in that space, allowing you to move inside of that space. But you're noticing that after a while, you got all twisted and discombobulated inside that space. You notice that them cords got kind of tied up. And they all became one synonymous chord, because that's what they're supposed to do. Everything goes from that state. When you're stuck in this tethering point, that's duality. Tethering is the duality. But all of these things are going to fuse together the longer you're inside of that space. So it becomes one chord. The problem with the thing that stops us from cutting cords a lot of times is we don't know what that cord was created with. What is the basis? What's the core? Not only to get to the core of that chord, I got to understand what was the formula used, the formula, what was the standard, where was I at, what was the structure, what were the things that I was at that created that chord in order for me to cut it. Because what happens a lot of times that goes into that space, you'll cut a whole chord. Something that bit me. No, it didn't. When you're cutting that chord, you'll cut it, but then it comes back because you didn't understand what the root or the basis of that root was. That's why it can keep coming back in. That's why those thoughts can become, the thoughts that were naturally yours now become intrusive because they're still something that they can feed on. That leads into the aspects of the Knight of Cups. When I do readings, when I read energy, for anybody that's never had a reading with me before, when I read cards, when I read energy, I'm simply illustrating the energy. So I will talk ahead of the cards. Basis of the Knight of Cups, basis of the Knights, you understand it means moving in haste. The thing that stops you a lot of times from moving forward is because you sitting there with that thing of haste. You're moving in haste. You want to hastily move to the next space, the next situation, the next space, because it feels familiar. That's the arousal. It feels familiar. You've been in that space before. The key of constructing anything anew is moving on the things that are unfamiliar to you. The thing that keeps the Knight of Cups in its actual balance with itself is moving on things that are unfamiliar in the sense of the physical aspects, and moving based on sitting with that feeling, sitting with that emotion, sitting with that thought process. If you've never experienced before, the worst thing that you can do is ask a question and get what? If you ask a yes or no question, the worst thing that can happen is a no. Whether it's a yes or a no, it's not the yes or the no, it's the energy that you're being forced to feel. If you're asking a question, you're going into that space and you're moving in that new energy with yourself, the worst thing that you can ask is the question. After you ask the question, the answer, this is the thing that comes in aspects of Why you move in haste? A lot of times we move in haste because you're moving based on an answer and not the truth. See, the answer fits the potential. The truth is of its own potential. It doesn't need anything to make it fit or make it work. The answer fits the position in which you're in or the position in which you want to go in. But the truth, it don't need that. The truth is absolute. That leads into our next space of the aspects of that good old magician. See, the answer is the glamour. If you can move forward, 9 times out of 10, I used to be bad for this. 9 times out of 10, you'll make a move based on that glamour. Yay, they've accepted the identity. They've accepted this small piece of me, so I'm going to move forward on all fronts. And that's usually when that glamour starts to get weak. That's when your glamour gets weakened. Your actual self starts to get weakened. Because you're trying to convince yourself of the magic you can, the energy and everything you can do inside of that space, but you haven't you're afraid to show how the trick works. You're afraid to show how it works. You're afraid to show your thought process. Maybe you're the type of person that overly explains their process. So now it's time for you to actually sit and allow somebody to ask you questions to actually open up more to that process. That way you can become more familiar with that. Now you can become more familiar with that space because this person's questions are showing you their level of where they're at. As opposed, or maybe on the other end of that aspect, maybe you're not used to actually explaining yourself. There's actually a video, it's one of my reels. Maybe you're used to defending yourself. You got to ask yourself the question, am I used to explaining or defending myself? Defense, one aspect of defending yourself a lot of the times is you'll listen without truly listening. You'll try to make it work in your favor. As opposed to explaining yourself, you've listened. You've listened. That means you've learned to listen to yourself. You've learned to assess and take those assessments with yourself and auditing yourself. So now when you're inside of that space and you're having that conversation, now you know what to listen for in order to the same thing, to ask the question. They asked the question. How did that question make you feel when they asked you that shit? Did you try to laugh it off? How did you feel about it? Did you feel uncomfortable? Did you admit you felt uncomfortable? That's how you build out that space. Shattering that glamour. So we have, this is a time to assess where your cup is at and if it's overflowing or if it's empty. The cracks inside of your cup, wherever your cup is at right now, it's time to look at it and actually take an assessment of it. You're coming to the end of the cycle of the old tethering and the things that were tethering you to that old position or that old space. So now the nuance is coming in, and since you're assessing your cup, now when that nuance comes in, instead of you reacting your old way, now you can sit there with yourself and actually pace yourself. Ain't no damn rush. And that helps you distinguish in between, am I defending my glamour or am I really explaining my true self inside of that space? We're going to pull 2 more cards. That's going to leave you, once again, I always read ahead. I can read ahead. That leads into the 2 of Wands. That leads into the aspects of that 2 of Wands. Once you sat in that space and once you've gotten enough information to where you are satisfied, this is going past that state of arousal. You're truly satisfied. That means that you gained enough substance and you sat with it. Now you can make your decision. A lot of times we sit in those spaces, and because you got that old thought process in your mind that this might not go right, this is like this. The last time I had my job, this happened. The last time was the last time. It got paid off already. You can't keep using it in the present state. So you have a decision to make. Do I have enough information? What path do I need to take with myself? Maybe I do need to sit down a little bit longer. Maybe I do need to sit there and look at my discipline with myself Maybe I do need to sit down with my day and look at how I've learned to structure my day and my routine. Is it based on me trying to protect myself, stay in a state of defense, or has it been me sitting in a state of observation? That's the difference. That's the aspects of that space. And the final card is the final aspect of what happens a lot of times, is the aspect of judgment. You have to stop being, this is the stop that hinders a lot of us. Judgment. The aspect of that judgment. Judgment fucks your head up. Judgment will have you judgment will have you, if you're used to jumping around all the fucking time, judgment will have you afraid to sit down. If you're used to sitting in one place and not moving around and not observing and looking at the whole space, judgment will have you afraid to move. So now you're inside of this space. Now we're coming into this space, especially with that Pisces energy coming around, that space of judgment. What are you judging based on? Are you where are you at currently in that current cycle with your movements? Are you used to jumping around and I'm gonna jump out of everything every fucking time? Are you used to that? Why do you fear sitting still? And if you fear sitting still, if you fear moving around, what is keeping you sitting still? Maybe you need to read some more. Maybe you need to read more. Maybe you need to tap in and you actually need to sit down and be like, you know what? Maybe I do need to sit down with somebody outside of my comfort zone, outside of the normal 5-6 people I talk to every day. Maybe I do need to sit down with somebody that actually, in order to do that, I got to go through my vetting process. It's okay for me to vet. It's okay for me to vet out the process. Because if you don't do it, you'll move in haste. A lot of times you'll move in haste, and that's when a lot of times you end up, this is where you get scammed and shit keep coming through. This is when the e-files keep coming into your inbox, and you get them random people hitting you up in your inbox talking about, I felt your energy and felt you need a reading. And you'll be like, oh my God. One party you was that first time you did it, oh my God, I did need a reading. My energy has been off. And you're going to tap in with them and they're going to feed off your energy. Then you're going to get mad when they fed off your energy. Then on the other side of that, now the e-fuss hitting you in your box. You're like, oh my God, I'm tired of these motherfuckers hitting me in my inbox. The consonant in between that is, at first you misjudged it and you misused the information. Now you're stuck on the other part. You don't want to move because of what happened last time. That's similar to the last time of the last time of the last time. You see how you see how we can unconsciously get stuck in the past, trying to convince ourselves that we deserve a better future without building it. I've done all of the work. Okay, do more. I've done all of the work. Okay, do more. I've already had all of those conversations. Okay. What are those conversations? Were you having conversations or what were you doing really in that space? That becomes your process. It's time to observe your cup. Where is it at? Where's your cup at right now? It's time to understand. It's time to start looking at those cords that you made and going through the process of cutting them. Don't just cut the cord. Just don't hop into. Just don't say, "Oh, I need to do a cord cutting," and you ain't got you go download on Google a cord cutting bath or a cord cutting ritual, but you're not assessing what you're cutting away with yourself. You're not taking the accountability or responsibility that's why I do my cord cutting reading, and you really haven't assessed what you had to cut and how it benefited you, what you need to let go of, things of that nature. You didn't go through the process of of actually dissecting and auditing these cords. Got to get to that root. You can sit there and I'm gonna do a cord. Most people do their cord cutting like this. Here's the root. Here's the issue. You're gonna pull. The root is still there. The root is still there. So then it grows back. So now the same season goes around And now something else grows inside of that space. You're like, oh my God, I don't like why does this happen every year? You haven't pulled out that root yet. This goes to the aspects of you trying to move in haste. It's time to pace yourself. It's time to take away the glamour and the feeling like, I want to be the best person ever. I want to be the prettiest girl in the world. I want to be the prettiest one at the ball. It's time to get out of that. It's time to step out of your head and actually into the feeling. It's time to step out of your head and into the actual feeling. Yes, the feeling is going to suck. Yeah, it's going to make you feel some type of way. That's what it's supposed to do. How else do you know how to navigate? How else do I know how to navigate if I don't understand feelings? How else can I step into the flow, frequencies and vibrations, instead of just saying and trying to convince myself I'm on a different vibration if I don't know what my vibrations are? I'm just stuck on, they said I would feel like this around retrograde. Yeah, they were right. But you don't sit with yourself on retrograde and realize that building. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, look at that. Yep. I'm tired of how my life is going, and I need to be celibate. Why are you celibate? These are things that I ask myself when I look up at that. When I used to look up my time, I still look up at that my timeline. Instead of me going in there and asking them questions, because I'm not gonna solicit my energy into random places. That's how you get fucked up. You solicit your energy in random places. Why are you celibate? Why are you celibate? Why are you practicing semen retention? Because these hoes out here, it ain't gonna work. Why are you celibate? Because these niggas out here doing this, it ain't gonna work. Your celibacy is in vain. Your celibacy is in vain. Your semen retention is in vain because you ain't really sitting with the actual process. You ain't actually sitting with the process. Every time you sitting there semen retention, it's fun and it's all fun. Before we get out of here, it's all fun until you're practicing semen retention from a state of your rejection wound. You see what a lot of times we attach. Remember, you attach your ex to your trauma, or you attach your ex to your purpose. They have to attach to something or connect to something. So if I attach my celibacy to my trauma, my rejection, my separation, my abandonment wound, I'm going to use my abandonment wound to say that I'm been celibate for so long. But if I'm not attaching it to my purpose, the moment that I'm no longer celibate and I get weak, or I'm practicing semen retention and I get weak and I have a weak moment, I have a nigga moment, now I got to start all over again. Because it's not connected to your purpose. It's not aligned with your higher aspects of yourself. You're not connected to the higher aspects of yourself. You still think if you're still thinking that your higher self is separate from you and you have not tapped in and became your higher self yet, you have work to do. You have work to do. If you still think that your lower self, okay, I'm detached. No, you're dissociated from your lower and higher self. You got to do the work. It's time to pace yourself. But yeah, I just wanted to come through, drop this week's daily message on y'all. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Appreciate the love and the support y'all coming through. It's the excellent beginning to me coming into chapter 39. It was funny because over the weekend I said I was 39 to my mother. My mother looked at me. She's like, "You don't look past 28." I was like, exactly. I'll never look past 28. I'll never age. Gratitude, gratitude. I'll never age. I stopped the process. And to come in and drop that message. Making these conversations normal is the only way you're going to change some shit. Making these types of conversations, making yourself uncomfortable is the only way that something's going to change. From that point of discomfort, from that uncomfortable rhythm, from that trigger, you have a choice. You have the choice to either step into it and embrace what needs to be done next, or you can regress. You can regress and keep doing what you did last year, or you can keep going forward and let go and actually learn the year. You cannot fix shit on the same level in which it was created. Say it one more time. You cannot fix shit on the same level in which it was formed. You either got to go below it or above it. Either way, that's your choice. That choice comes with some nice options. Which options are you ready for? One of the last things I'm going to say, healing is destructive, you're deserving but you're not entitled, and this level of honesty is the aspects of coming into that transparency. One more thing before we get out of here. Your dedication to you must be greater than your detriments. The fear of what you're going to lose. Your dedication to yourself in this process, this work, must be greater than the detriments of the fear of what you're going to lose that you built based on survival. When you're ready for that, when you can sit and look in the mirror and say that to yourself, and you might cry, the feelings start bawling, you start bawling tears out of your eyes, you start fucking losing your fucking mind, that's when you're ready. That's when you're ready. And that's when you can hop in my inbox. Please start with a grand rising, please introduce yourself. Just don't hop in my inbox with a bunch of, there's people in my inbox right now that they jump in my inbox, say some they're moving on some emotional raw shit, and they'll say, just that being in my inbox, being an empath, I feel that, but like, ooh, I'm not touching that one yet. I'll let it sit there for a couple of days, similar to friend requests. But when you're ready, you're able to introduce yourself as you. You can introduce yourself. Hey, I'm this, or hey, and I've been thinking, I've watched this, and you actually have a point that we can build from. When you're constructing your new spaces, you have an entry point that you've accepted. When you're steady trying to convince yourself, you lead with the problem. When you're ready to construct, you lead with, I don't know. You lead with, I don't know. I'm interested in this. This is what I read this, I heard this, and I wanted some insight on it. You see how it's different? When you're in that space of the aspects of constructing something versus trying to convince yourself. Convincing yourself is you'll lead with, I'm a good person, and this keep happening. And I'm a this, and this keep happening. And then this happened. You see how you're trying to avoid yourself, trying to convince yourself? That's the difference. Two sides of that same coin. But I'm going to go in here and prepare my salad for the day. Prepare my salad and drink one of my smoothies. But again, I love you. You love us. Thank you for stopping through. All services, link is up top in the bio of this. The link is up top for all services. I'll talk to y'all later. I love you. You love us. Ashe.